Today I'm going to give you a practical summary of the book The Culture Code, in which Daniel Cole brings us through his analysis of the question, why do certain groups add up to be greater than the sum of their parts while others add up to be less? Hello everyone and welcome to a Daily Rambling Richie. So I'm just going to give you practical notes that I made during the book, things that you can apply. I'm going to make claims that the book made. If you want to look at the sources, I recommend getting the book. Nonetheless, I recommend reading the book because there are a lot of stories made that will help memorize certain points, also make points more clear. I'm not going to focus that much on the stories. I'm going to focus very much on the actual practical things that you can do, that you can apply to, when you're managing a team, when you are some kind of leader in some kind of position, or if you're just part of a team, or if you want to set up a team. All these things, all these cases, I think this book can be very valuable. So, as you might know, the book starts with a concept that you might know, which is the marshmallow test. Have you ever heard of this? Where you give a group of people a bunch of uncooked spaghetti, you give them some string, maybe some glue, and a marshmallow. And the idea is you have to create a construction. The marshmallow needs to be on top. It needs to stand alone by itself, not fall down. Who can build the highest tower with the marshmallow at the top? And what's very funny is if you take a random group of adults and a random group of children will, on average, perform better. And the answer behind why do children perform better is answered in this book. I'm going to give you the practical notes of this book, which then will answer the question, why do children perform better in the marshmallow test? All right, so this book is divided into 3 sections, 3 core essential things for a team to function: building safety, sharing vulnerability, and establishing purpose. So I'm going to go through these 3 sections. First of all, building safety. So they talk about good apples. And I am going to share a short story from the book, which was an interesting experiment which they did where they had a bunch of groups, startup groups, and they were going to create a project. And inside of these groups, they injected a mole. So someone who was going to sabotage the group. And there were different archetypes like the jerk or the slacker or the downer. So, in the group, the mole might be like, I don't know if I have time for this. I don't think we should put that much effort into this aspect. Like really slacking and not really wanting to or being the downer, like, it's not going to work anyway. Why are we even trying? Or the jerk, just being a bit mean to people. This one person, the bad apple, had the ability to bring down the performance of the entire team. And they saw this repeatedly, except for in one case where the group seemed to be immune to the mole. And after analysis, they concluded in this team was a good apple, a very good apple. That's the word they use. And so what does a good apple look like? What are traits of a good apple? A true team player is called a good apple. And the essence of what they said was this good apple was able to create safety. So creating safety, they mentioned, what is needed for this is to create belonging cues. So to show each individual that they belong. And how do you do this? One is investing energy into the dialogue. In every individual, investing in the exchange, really engaging with them. Also individualization, like making sure every individual has the sense that they are valued and they are unique and valued in that. And also future orientation. So what often seemed to be the case was that they were referencing, future cases where they were working together. So, in 2 months when we have learned this, we will be able to do this together better. And imagine in 2 months how wonderful it would be to together be able to present this end product. Or having this signal that we are in this together and we are in this together into the future, showing that you belong to this group. And the very big essence of this first part of building safety of the book is how deeply obsessed human beings are with safety. So just imagine going into a new job. You don't know anyone. You don't want to come across stupid. You want to be liked. You're worried about what people think of you. There's so much going on inside of you. And for a manager or for a team participant to be able to give you this sense of safety, give you this sense of you belong, you are a part of this team, has a huge impact on a lot of things, one of which is performance. I'm going to quickly just go through. They shared when observing, a flourishing group, a group that worked very well together with nice performance. Just observing it as if you're an alien from Mars. What do you see? So I'm going to list those things. First of all, close physical proximity, eye contact, physical touch, just like fist bumps, high fives, many short energetic exchanges, high levels of mixing, so everyone is interacting with everyone, few interruptions, many questions, intensive active listening, humor and laughter, and small attentive courtesies. So this book talks a lot about signals. So in this chapter, signals on how do we build safety? How do you signal that to someone that you are connected and you are belonging? So an example would be you are working on a project and you hear that a coworker worked on a similar problem and wants to give you some tips. So when you hear this, you have this signal that you are connected and that someone cares about you. And this in itself can have a huge amount of effect on your motivation and energy. And in this book, they give you examples of this. So we'll be talking a lot about signals, and signals is not something you do once. It's something that you practice and you repeat endlessly signaling safety and connectedness. Realizing that psychological safety is such a fundamental need of each human being. And so continuously signaling to each team member you belong, you are connected, you are cared for and taken into consideration, you are valued, we are close, we are safe, we share a future. These are all signals that contribute to the sense of belonging, to building safety. So speaking of belonging, a question that's answered in this chapter is how to create belonging. One thing they mentioned in this book is saying the following thing when giving feedback to something that a co-worker of yours has done. I'm giving you these comments because I have high expectations and I know that you can reach them. So what does this signal? You are part of this group. This group is special. We have high standards here, and I believe you can reach those standards. And important with this is to make sure that the signal also contains here is a safe place to give effort. So when someone gives effort, you can be very honest in your feedback, but also to keep the safety. So it's okay to give effort even if you do something wrong. We give feedback, and that's okay. So 3 types of belonging cues they mentioned is first, personal close-up connection. Second, performance feedback, relentless coaching and criticism, constant feedback. And it signals we have high standards here, but also I believe you can reach those standards and you are part of this group. And also big picture perspective, to share this, you are part of this whole. We're in this together. And another thing they talk about is making sure everyone has a voice. So, for example, one example that people did was establishing regular forums where anyone can bring any issue or question before the group leader, no matter how controversial it might be. And another thing you can do is you can ask everyone the following 3 questions. What do you like most about this company? What do you like least? What would you change if you could? And if someone then suggests something that resonates and is immediately applicable, announce that change and give the credit to the person who announced it. Really making people get the sense that they are heard, they have a voice in this organization. And which will be repeated in this book is a very powerful signal. If you can communicate, we are in this together. And giving everyone a voice is a way to signal we are in this together. So, another thing they mention is connection events. So they talk about one of the huge cues in how to create belonging is personal close-up connection. So to have events around that, spending time away from the desk, away from the workplace is, for one, a very good reliever of stress, also a really nice opportunity to get connected and to cultivate this sense of belonging and building safety. So this chapter ends, every section of the book ends with a list of very actionable practical things that you can do. So in this chapter, establishing or creating safety has the following actions. Over-communicate your listening. Avoid interruptions. Show your weaknesses early on, be vulnerable, and admit to mistakes, especially as a leader. Actively invite input. Embrace the messenger. So if someone has very honest feedback, and it might be difficult to hear, do everything you can to positively reinforce this. Positively reinforce honest feedback. Show deep gratitude. Make it safe for them to do this again. Preview future connection, telling connections between now and the vision of the future. So in the future, we are in this together. Overdo thank yous. Constantly express gratitude for things that people do. And also, be painstaking in the hiring process. Deciding who's in and who's out is the most powerful signal any group sends. So part of this is we want team players. If someone shows they're thinking about the team instead of themselves, this is an invaluable trait. And another part of the hiring process is to eliminate bad apples. So someone who does not fit into the group, someone who has certain personality that can bring the group down, to be very selective. This is something that they saw repeatedly in high-performance teams. Another thing is to create safe and high-collision spaces. So, away from the desk, maybe, for example, a machine where people come together and they have the spontaneous contact, so designing the space and also the culture in such a way that people take a break together and etc. Making sure everyone has a voice. And here's another one, picking up trash. And what I mean, or what they mean by this, is being a leader doesn't entitle you to anything, for example, first of all, but also showing you are a human and want this team to flourish and are willing to work for that. We are all in this together, showing humility as a leader. A mindset, the leader having a mindset of seeking simple ways to serve the group. This communicates a lot to the team. Another thing they emphasize is capitalizing on threshold moments. So, for example, if you're new to the company, that's a very big threshold moment. Taking this moment very seriously but also if there's a big change in the company, or if you come into a new group or the group changes, these threshold moments they emphasize the importance of those also to creating a culture that is valuable and effective and flourishing. Another thing, so 2 more things about this last chapter is how to give feedback. So one thing they say is ask if a person wants feedback. Then a 2-way learning focused in a 2-way conversation about the needed growth. So you're not saying you need to do this, you need to do this. You're really having a conversation and it goes both ways and they can give their own input, you give your input. What is the needed growth? Really like an open way of communicating with the individual. And when you express positives, what they noticed was ultra clear bursts of recognition and praise. So really, really showing that you value their work and their efforts and what you are grateful for. You're radiating a delight when naming things you appreciate and having this warm and authentic happiness while doing so. So the last thing they talk about in this chapter is embrace fun. They say laughter is a sign of safety and connection. So it's a lot of information, and I'm going to go to the second chapter now, which is sharing vulnerability. So the second chapter is sharing vulnerability. Daring to say what you do not know. Daring to ask for help. For example, saying, anybody have any ideas? Vulnerability from a leader or from anyone tends to spark cooperation and trust, is a claim they make. And they have quite some stories to back it up. So here's a signal that you can give. As a leader, saying, I have weaknesses that I could use help with. If you express the signal, others will take over this culture and we can set insecurities aside and get to work. Trust each other and help each other. So instead of, I cannot show that I do not understand this, I cannot make mistakes, I cannot express weaknesses, and then you're masking weaknesses and you cannot set insecurities aside and get to work. You cannot fully trust each other and you cannot fully help each other because you're not expressing what you need help with. And this is maybe one of the big differences between children and adults. In the marshmallow test, they noticed adults were spending a lot of their time and resources on, finding out where they are in this group, who has which status, who is the leader, where am I? I want to be seen as capable. I do not want to show that I do not know something. And there's a lot of ego going on. Children, they just go to work. They just grab pieces of string. They just put the things together. They grab the marshmallow, put it on top of something. And they get to work and they communicate and they experiment and they fail. And while they're doing that, the adults are still talking, trying to find out who is the leader, which plan should we follow, and not experimenting, not failing, and not getting to work. And this is, how they reason that children perform better in this experiment. So, a vulnerability loop they talk about is person A shares vulnerability signal, person B detects, person B reciprocates, also shares something vulnerable, A detects, and the norm is established. And closeness and trust increase. Trust can be broken. The driver of trust, is what they say, is vulnerability. To show and share that you need others and you cannot do it on your own. This signal needs to be repeated constantly. A signal that is, you have a role here, you are needed, I need you. If you can signal this to an individual in the team, it's a very powerful communication for trust. And cooperation. Exchanges, so this is what they say in the book, exchanges of vulnerability which we naturally tend to avoid are the pathway through which trusting cooperation is built. And a really cool example they share in the book is an improv team, a long-form improv acting, creating a scene from improvisation, not having a script or anything. And they call it the Harold, which is a very specific type of exercise. And you create a long story, a very long story, with a team. And they have a few rules or guidelines in this Harold, they call it, in this improv technique. And these rules, if they are applied well, and if they can be followed, then the team tends to work really well together and the performance is beautiful. So, here are the rules, and a lot of these rules have some origin in the basic concepts of this book. So I'll just share the rules with you, and yeah, you can see for yourself what you will integrate and what not. It's a bit separate from the rest of this video. It's very much focused on improv, but if you can pick things out there that is valuable, feel free. So the rules that they give to the team of actors that are going to be on stage and going to create a long-form improv show are as follows. You are all supporting actors. Rule number 1. 2. Always check your impulses. 3. Never enter a scene unless you are needed. 4. Save your fellow actor. Don't worry about the piece. 5. Prime responsibility is support. 6. Work at the top of your brains all the times. 7. Never underestimate or condescend the audience. 8. No jokes. 9. Trust your fellow actors to support you, your fellow actors to come through if you lay something heavy on them, yourself. 10. Avoid judging what is going down, except in terms of whether it needs help, what you can best follow, or how to support if support is called. 11. Listen. So, all these rules and guidelines together form a framework in which improv teams can perform really well if they are able to live these guidelines. And a part of this is you have to be able to be naked, to be out of things to say, so people can find things together. Your minds should be open. All right, so let's move on to past the improv section and talk about a hive mind. So, having one person tell others what to do is not reliable, is a claim they make. They have really nice examples, because one person cannot possibly know everything. So how do you create conditions where we do not have this authority bias? Where you develop a hive mind almost, where how to develop ways to challenge each other, ask the right questions, never defer to authority, trying to create leaders among leaders. You cannot just tell people, you have to create conditions where they can start doing it. So how do you do this? So one powerful signal is, especially when you are a leader and you give an opinion, how do you give your opinion? So giving your opinion and then also communicating a signal where, I don't know everything, please give input, give reactions to my opinion. So say something like, let's see if someone can poke holes in this, or tell me what's wrong with my idea, or anybody have any ideas. Just inviting input. So this is also expressing some vulnerability as a leader, showing, I don't know. And how do you learn as a team? Because nobody can know or see it all. And so what they talk about is if you keep constantly, repeatedly get together as a team, digging out what happened, and what someone did, how this affected other people. After a while, everybody can see what's really going on, not just a small piece of it. People share experiences and mistakes. They can see how this affects others, and we can start to create a group mind where everybody can work together and perform to the team's potential. And so cultivating a strong team. Here is a sentence from the book. Team strength is built of a willingness to spot and confront the truth and to come together to ask a simple question over and over, what's really going on here? A sentence from the book, real courage is seeing the truth and speaking the truth to each other. People never want to be the person who says, wait a second, what's really going on here? But within this uncomfortableness, within this squadron, that is the culture, and that's why the team is successful. All right, so they named some traits that successful leaders have. Warmth and curiosity, polite, reserved, and skilled listeners, radiating safe, nurturing vibes, possessing deep knowledge that spans many domains, and a knack for asking questions that ignited motivation and ideas. So, some tactics from this book. For the team to have regular all-team meetings, and for the leader to prepare, learn what are the issues in the team through conversations, one-on-one conversations. What are the barriers? Where is the friction? And during the meeting, ask questions designed to unearth the tensions and help the group gain clarity about themselves and about the project and about the team. And this is something that can be really valuable for a leader to input. And then another question is, how do you interact in a flourishing team? So there is a constant provocation to nudge, to help think beyond what is immediately in front of us. And it usually starts with questioning the big obvious things. Not confrontational, it's organic, embedded in conversation. And a part of this is being an attentive listener with a constant stream of connection signals. Connection signals, for example, I want to receive your input. I value your input. I would like to hear your honesty. How is this for you? It's very subtle, and I think it's something you can cultivate over time. And by the way, I'm not saying that I have cultivated this, but I do believe that it's something you can cultivate. And I think everyone is somewhere in the journey of cultivating how to create these signals, to create safety, and also how to create a culture where people can share vulnerability. And you can share vulnerability. So another thing they give, very practically, is questions that a team can ask themselves. So as a leader, you could approach the team and ask them to answer the following questions. What is the one thing that excites me the most about this particular opportunity? I confess, the one thing I'm not so excited about is, on this project, I'd really like to get better at. So by asking your team members to answer these questions, you are connecting to deeper emotions and needs. What are the fears? What are the ambitions? What are the motivations? Which is really valuable to connect on. And as with the last chapter, this chapter ends with a list of actionable things. I'm going to go through them. First, they mention group vulnerability is like a muscle. You need to train it. Just like you need to train habits, just like you need to train your muscles, you need reps. It's repeatedly repeating signals. It takes time, it takes repetition, and it takes a willingness to feel pain in order to achieve gains. So step one is to approach this with a plan. And here I'm now going to give you a list of things that you can integrate into your plan. Make sure the leader is vulnerable first and often. Leader asks 3 questions. What is one thing I do to continue? One thing I don't do frequently enough? What can I do to make you more effective? Ask a leader asking this to the team. Over-communicate expectations. You have certain expectations as a leader for the team, for the company. Over-communicate this. Be very clear. And this will make others more successful. And also, going out of your way to help others is also a very secret source to this. And a powerful signal that when you're helping others, you're showing your willingness to help others, you're also establishing cooperation expectations, an expectation that we are in this together. All right, another tip, deliver negative stuff in person, which avoids misunderstandings and avoids a lot of energy lost. Group formation is critical moment. So it's the first vulnerability, first time you come together in a group, sets a certain culture, establishes a certain culture. And if you are able to be vulnerable, so, it's the question that's answered. Are we about appearing strong or about exploring the landscape together? And the second one is what they claim will be valuable for flourishing. The first disagreement is also a very critical moment. And how this is handled also answers the question of, are we about winning interactions or are we about learning together? And the second one is how a team can flourish. So if you can be able to approach disagreements in such a way that it's clear we are learning together, very valuable. The next tip is about listening. They talk about listen like a trampoline. While listening, try and communicate that this is safe and the other is supported. Try to help and cooperate. Occasional questions to gently and constructively challenge old assumptions that someone might have. Occasional suggestions to open alternative paths. Next to these questions of, suggestions and challenging assumptions, just listening. The next thing is use candor generating practices. Okay, so they talk about this a lot. And what they mean is it's a practice you do as a team together. And each of these practices generate the same underlying action. They build a habit of opening up vulnerabilities so that a group better understands what works, what doesn't, and how to get better. So an example are to come together after a certain project and together answer the questions: what were the intended results? What actually happened? What was the cause? What will we do the same next time, and what will we do differently? They talk about various ways of exercises. Another example is before an action review is what are the intended results? What challenges do we anticipate? What have we learned from similar experiences, and what will make success this time? And these practices generate the same underlying action to build the habit of opening up vulnerability so that the group can better understand what works, what doesn't, and how to get better. The next tip is aim for candor, avoid brutal honesty. So when you give feedback, for example, that is smaller and targeted, less personal, less judgmental, and equally impactful, this is more valuable. So instead of, judgmental would be like, I think you are not really a team player. That's a very, very big judgment. Instead, very specifically, you told me that or in the last meeting, when Brian was talking, you interrupted Brian. And I would like, for example, I'm not I'm not a manager, but just very, very targeted. You interrupted Brian, and I would like for the team, for everyone really to have a voice, and so I'm curious if you're willing to have an intention to try and to not interrupt. So this is very specific, and I'm not sure if this is, I'm not a professional, but the point is, aim for candor, avoid brutal honesty. So aim for very specific, targeted feedback and not judgmental. The next thing, which I think is really valuable, embrace the discomfort. So, these practices, also opening up vulnerability within a group, generates discomfort. There's, first of all, emotional pain, really sharing with the groups maybe mistakes you made or, things that didn't go well. It's a very vulnerable process. But the second is also, it might feel inefficient. Like, why are we spending so much time on reflecting? We need to be moving on. And so they say, really just embrace it. With any workout, this pain is not a problem, but the path to building a stronger group. And the next tip they say is align language with action. So language that highlights cooperative, interconnected nature of the work and reinforce the group's shared identity. So just an example, instead of saying project managers, say design community leaders. So really having the language communicate what we are about, which also already in itself sends a signal. Which words do we use? And the next tip is maybe controversial for some people because it might be different than a lot of people are used to. Building a wall between performance reviews and professional development. So performance evaluation, this is a very high-risk, vulnerable process where we're, inevitably going to talk about judgments. Also, it's going to be salary-related. So this is, one thing, the performance review. And to separate the development aspect, identifying strengths and providing support and opportunities for growth. What do you want to learn? How do you want to develop in this team? And to separate the two. They don't have to be in the same meeting. They can be separate. They don't even have to be in the same week. The next thing they talk about is flash mentoring. It's a very concrete thing. Just spending a few hours with someone that you can learn a lot from, that maybe has more experience, that you want to learn from. And by spending some hours with them, maybe even while working, you already learn things. And the last thing they mention is sometimes make the leader disappear. Sometimes letting the team figure things out by themselves, because oftentimes the people who are really on the grounds and really doing the work have a better idea of what solutions are best, better than the leader. And by having the leader disappear, you're encouraging also for them to take this initiative and to start thinking about these things. That is chapter 2. And now we're going to talk about the last final chapter, which is about establishing purpose. So the final chapter, chapter 3, establishing purpose. So we've talked about building safety, sharing vulnerability, and now we're going to talk about establishing purpose. And these 3 are apparently the secret sauce to a flourishing team. So what they say about purpose isn't about tapping into some mystical internal drive, but rather about creating simple beacons that focus attention and engagement on the shared goal. So we're going to elaborate. One thing they recommend is a certain experiment you can do. So first of all, think about a realistic goal that you'd like to achieve. It could be anything, becoming skilled at a sport, rededicate time to a relationship, uploading a daily video on YouTube, anything, any goal that you would like to achieve. So bring it to your mind, spend a few seconds reflecting on that goal and imagining that it's come true. Picture a future where you've achieved it. So right now I'm picturing, for example, in 1 year time that I have until then uploaded a video every single day. Step 2, take a few seconds and picture the obstacles between you and the goal as vividly as possible. Don't gloss over the negative, but try to see them as they truly are. So to focus on obstacles that could come. So for example, I want to upload a video every day. Sometimes I really don't feel like it. I really don't. I have such an aversion. I want to go to bed, but I haven't uploaded a video yet. And I will have to take my camera, record on my phone, not being happy about the product because I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I'm using bad quality stuff. I'm not using my setup. I'm using my phone. Also having this insecurity of people watching me and people being like, why are you spending your time on this? And yeah, I'm envisioning the things, the obstacles. This experiment, this technique is called mental contrasting. And the claim they make is that this method works. What do I mean when I say works? It seems to trigger significant changes in behavior and motivation. So when you do this exercise, apparently it helps with motivation. But a question you might have is, what is motivation? Maybe you didn't, but it is a question they answer. And how they look at motivation is a 2-part process of attention. First, your attention goes to, here's where you are at right now. And then your attention goes to, here's where you want to go. It's very simple. And what matters is establishing this link and consistently creating engagement around it. What matters is telling the story, where you are now and where you would like to be. In when I'm right now, I'm trying to upload a video every day. I would like to have done this for 1 year. The power of story. So, when a leader holds the story that their team members have, so this is actually an example that they gave about school teachers. So they did a very interesting experiment where they let the students of a middle school or maybe primary school, high school, I'm not sure, take a test, and then they shared with the teachers which students had unusual potential for growth and for development. The thing is, they didn't even look at the test, they randomly assigned the students. And what happened was that the teachers, because they thought a certain student had actual unusual potential for growth, created also this expectation and also this care and support for these students. And what happened is their performance actually did increase, more so than the students who didn't, where the teachers were not told that they had unusual potential for growth. And this story is very powerful because, this example is very powerful because it shows that how a leader looks at you as an individual, but also each person in the team has a lot of impact on also how the team will function as a whole. Also how each individual will function and how much motivation they will feel. And so if you're able to hold the story that each individual in your team has unusual potential for growth, and you want to support that growth, you want to care for that growth, and you have high expectations, then this in itself already, unconsciously, sometimes consciously, sends signals to these people and will help with their motivation. And this is also the reason why the selection process is very important, because if you just hire anyone, then it's very difficult to have the story of, I believe in your growth. But if you choose the people selectively in such a way that you actually do believe in their growth and their potential, then you can hold this story very strongly. Okay, so the question they ask and answer is how to create a high purpose environment. So an environment where there's a lot of purpose in the team and in the individuals. And so they talk about two things. They talk about how to create this for proficiency and how to create this for creative projects. And so these two are different, and they also ask for different tactics and different ways to engage with the team. So when I say proficiency, I mean something that it's already clear what the end goal is. It's clear, there's a certain product that needs to be made, and if we make this product and again, it's the thing that you need to do is also repeatedly. For example, creating a certain app, and the client already told you exactly what the app needs to have. All you need to do is create the code for the app. And so there's no creative process going on anymore. You're really just focused on doing what's asked. But then you also have, how to create a high-purpose environment for creative projects. For example, an example would be having a YouTube channel, creating a video every day. It's a very creative process. Every time you need to think about, okay, what do we want to do? Where do we want to go? How will we improve? All right, I'll start with the proficiency. So how do you create a high-purpose environment for proficiency projects? So the first thing is flood the environment with signals that link the present effort to a meaningful future. An example I'm thinking right now is I remember seeing a video about Formula One and the environment that they worked in, the engineers and the team, where they actually put the cars that won, they put the prizes all visible, so everyone could see what they are working for and what the future is that they're working towards. And also signals that indicate cooperation, like we're in this together. The second thing is use a single story to orient motivation. So story is very simple. This is why we work. Here is what you should put your energy to. We work because we want to create the best bicycles in the world, and we need to design a more efficient frame. I'm just saying something very random. And so you need to use your physics PhD to create the optimal shape. Very random. I don't know why I have not prepared that. Anyway, the second thing is it's not so much about sending one big signal, giving one big speech, or about being very inspiring. It's about a steady, ultra clear signals that are aligned with a shared goal. So every single day having this stream of signals. It's about being consistent. This is why we work here. This is what we are aiming for. So here's 5 indicator signals of success through which a team can be connected to the purpose of their work. 5 indicator signals. So one indicator signal is framing. How do you view the purpose of what you do? One way could be, I do it because I want to earn money. I do it because my boss told me. I'm doing it because, But you could also be, I do it because I believe in the impact. I do it because I want to be part of this change in the world. I do it because, so it's framing. How do you view the purpose? The second is roles. Each individual being told why their collective skills were important for team success and why it's important to work as a team. So to have individualization that I talked about in the first chapter as well. The second is rehearsal. So preparing together how to communicate, what to do when we have a hurdle, and really coming together and having this brainstorm and open conversation. This is also a signal on how to create a connection to the purpose. The fourth thing is explicit encouragement to speak up. So to have everyone be encouraged and feel safe to speak up if you see a problem, with active reinforcement and active coaching through the process if that's needed. And the last one is active reflection. So after the project, going over the performance, discuss the future situations and suggesting improvements. And also, everyone is involved in this. And these 5 things that you can do also help contribute to establishing purpose. Another thing they mention is the number one job in a team is to take care of each other. How we treat each other is everything. If we do that well, everything else will fall into place. The next thing they say is in an organization having clarity about values. What are we really about? What do we stand for? Who comes first, or what comes first? Next thing they talk about, which I find really interesting, is catchphrases to align the team. So each catchphrase functions as a small narrative in itself, providing a vivid mental model for solving routine problems. So an example, in a restaurant, some catchphrases they had: athletic hospitality, loving problems, Making the charitable assumption. Put us out of business with your generosity. To get a hug, you need to give a hug. So catchphrases, together, endlessly repeated and modeled through behavior, create a large conceptual framework that connects with the group's identity and expresses its core purpose. So in the example I just gave about the restaurant, the core purpose is we take care of people. The next thing they mention is you have priorities. You do. You can't deny it. Well, you can deny it, but you have them nonetheless. You have priorities, whether you name them or not. You better name them and name the behaviors that support the priorities and communicate this. So, and the next thing they talk about is 3 key practices. So one is selection of employees based on emotional capabilities, respectful treatment of employees, and management through a simple set of rules or heuristics, you could call them, that stimulate complex and intricate behaviors benefiting customers. This is again focused on the restaurant example. Another example of catchphrases is you cannot prevent mistakes, but you can solve them graciously. If it ain't broke, fix it. The road to success is paved with mistakes well handled. This is another example of another type of team. And so each team and each purpose with each individual set of values will have their own catchphrases. But yeah, to develop these catchphrases and to use them repeatedly within the team might even sound a bit weird at some point because you're just repeating them so often. But if you do, they really do integrate into the team's culture. And don't just send a signal, but also in creating engagement around it. So when you say a catchphrase, really in creating engagement around this catchphrase. So it's saying, like, for example, when you say, the road to success is paved with mistakes well handled, not to just say that, but to really focus the attention on that concept and to build around this concept, really highlighting it. And leaders, next thing they say, of high proficiency groups often do the following. They focus on creating priorities, naming keystone behaviors to support those priorities, and flooding the environment with heuristics or catchphrases that link the two, that link the behaviors with the priorities. So now we've talked about, how to create a high purpose environment. If you have very clear, we are at point A and we need to go to point B, but what if B is unknown? We are at point A and we don't know where we're going. Then comes also how to lead for creativity. So, they mentioned creative leaders are like artists. And the goal with creating a high-purpose environment for creative teams is to get the team right. So moving in the right direction. Get them to see they are making mistakes when they are making mistakes, and also getting them to see where they succeed when they succeed. And creating mechanisms where teams and people can keep working together to see what's really happening, work together to solve the problem. So an example, creating a safe and high candor environment. High candor meaning a lot of honesty. Pointing out problems and generating ideas that move the team stepwise towards a better solution. They even talk about a Japanese concept called Kaizen, which means continuous improvement. So you know the direction and you know how to improve, and you can communicate this and have a lot of honesty around this. Even though you don't know the end destination, you do know the direction and how you can move into that direction. Another example is that a leader didn't have any direct involvement in creating the creative decisions. So sometimes teams are in a better position to solve the creative problems. And the reason that the leader would not like to be there is because if they suggest something, there is a little bit of a bias to follow what the leader says. So to just say as a leader, now it's up to you. And in this example, they also mentioned to intervene later than necessary. So everyone is really ready for it to be, it's clear that whatever they were trying, it needs to be restarted or intervened with. And another example of catchphrases, but now focused on creative high-purpose environments. Hire people who are smarter than you. Fail early, fail often. Listen to everyone's ideas. Face towards the problems. B-level work is bad for your soul. And now a very important one. It's more important to invest in good people than in good ideas. So yeah, we've talked about the difference between leading for proficiency and leading for creativity. Where in proficiency, you know and feel exactly what to do. And with creativity, you discover that for yourself as a team. And managing, in general, is a creative act. It's problem solving and you have to love it. So it takes time. You have to go through some failures and screw ups and survive them and support each other through them And then after that happens, you really begin to trust one another. Many successful cultures were forged in moments of crisis. So here's an insight that they share. Building purpose is a never-ending process of trying, failing, reflecting, and above all, learning. High-purpose groups are dug out of the ground over and over as a group navigates the problems together and evolves to meet the challenges of a fast-changing world. It does not descend from on high. And with the last chapter, I will go through concrete actions that they talk about. So, number 1, name and rank your priorities. And I think they suggest in any case to have as a top priority group relations, in-group relations. How do you all treat each other? The next point, be 10 times clearer about your priorities as you think you should be. One way to create awareness is regularly testing company values and purpose. So getting together with a team and really asking questions, okay, so why is this our value? Why is this our purpose? Is this really our purpose? Challenging it. Next point, figure out if your group aims for proficiency and where it aims for creativity. And wherever it aims for one or the other, to also implement the specific way. So with proficiency, it's the task is the same way every time. It's machine-like reliability. Usually it's a goal, it's clearly defined. So what you need to do, according to them, is spotlight this goal and provide crystal clear directions to the checkpoints along the way. And how do you do this? You provide accessible models of excellence, high repetition, high feedback training, memorable rules of thumb, heuristics or catchphrases, and spotlight and honor the fundamentals of the skill. Now with creative groups, empowering a group to do the hard work of building something that has never existed before. How to generate purpose, provide support and fuel and tools, and to serve as protective presence that empowers the team doing the work. So how do you do this? Keenly attend to team composition and dynamics, define, reinforce, and relentlessly protect the team's creative autonomy, make it feel safe to fail and to give feedback, and celebrate hugely when the group takes initiative. And they say in any case to embrace catchphrases. Simple, action-oriented, forthright catchphrases. The next thing they say is measure what really matters. Measure what really matters. The next thing they say is use artifacts. So if you are in an environment, you can use artifacts that embody the purpose and identity of the group. And the final thing they say is focus on bar-setting behaviors. So how do you translate values and the mission into concrete terms? So for example, you could spotlight a single task and using it to define identity and setting the bar for expectations. All right, this was a lot of information, a lot. So if you have reached the end, thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and goodbye.